Hello, everybody. How's it going? Just figured I'd take the time to, talk about a new tweet, if you will, new tweet that we've been seeing around yesterday. So this is gonna turn to an add-on discussion, but you can see the tweet on the screen. Working on a weak aura that tracks what percentage players fake their casted spells, and then it creates a heat map or a zone on when they're most likely going to fake. The images below show that when 81 to 100 was about 50% of the fakes and the bar was yellow, and when it was the vast majority, then it was red. So I've talked a lot about add-ons. I've talked a ton about add-ons. The reasons why I think some are okay, some are, very convenient, some just kind of ruin the game, ruin the player experience, ruin the experience for new players, returning players, people who want to learn the game. So this is kind of just going to be a video talking about that, kind of wrapping up some thoughts, wrapping up thoughts, if you will, on my stance on it all. We talked a lot about it on stream. As far as YouTube goes, we'll lay it on the line, So I have been a huge advocate for getting rid of all add-ons. I don't think there's anything wrong with specific things. I think interrupt bar is completely fine. Being able to track interrupts, completely fine. All you can see is another person's interrupt. I think that should be baseline in the game. I think that there's certain things that can be baseline in the game, whether it's, better spell animations, whether it's, fixing it so that buffs and debuffs are easier to see. They can work that baseline in the UI as well. Somebody pops wings, similar to how add-ons can kind of change the portrait to show the wings icon for paladins, the Avenging Wrath icon, or, just have the buff on their actual player frame be 4 times as big. There's ways for Blizzard, I think, to address that when it comes to certain buffs and debuffs and cooldowns that are a bit harder to see. So I think that is an option for them. I think interrupt tracker baseline is completely fine. Anyone that's playing a caster, not being able to see interrupts is just brutal, completely brutal. So the fact that you have to download an add-on for that, if someone's new to the game or returning to the game, doesn't really make much sense to me, how that's not a feature that's already been implemented. So interrupt bar, I think, would be completely fine. Be able to track interrupts, casters, healers, completely fine. I think that diminishing returns as well, completely fine. You should be able to see when you stun somebody or your teammate stun somebody if you're in a solo shuffle. If you are brand new to the game, log in, you grind out levels, you get your gear, and you decide to play shuffle. Your first shuffle ever, you start playing, you don't have any add-ons, and you can't see anything. You can't see interrupts. You can't see... you play a solo shuffle, you press your stun is immune, or your stun is half a second, and you're sitting there wondering why. And I think that is a feature that should be just baseline a part of the game. 2 add-ons that would be completely fine as being part of the interface, the baseline interface in the game. So being able to track your interrupts and being able to see diminishing returns. I think add-ons like details that kind of just show you damage breakdowns, show you healing breakdowns, interrupts, how many interrupts you landed in the game. You can check the death recap after a game. Completely fine. It doesn't impact the awareness that you have or that you're developing in a game, or that you don't have. So the reason for this, now that I've talked about what I think would be completely fine for adding, interrupt bar, diminishing return, details would be fine. The reason for this, and I know a lot of people there's a lot of back and forth on what's right, what's wrong. People have different opinions. People kind of go back and forth on what they think is okay. My stance on it all, and what I firmly believe, and what I've seen over the years, especially the last several expansions now, where add-ons have gone completely bonkers, more than anyone really thought of back in older expansions, TBC, Wrath, Kata. My stance on it is, when the game is completely revolved around these add-ons, which it really is. When it comes to PvP, even PvEers have the same issue now when it comes to the raid. Blizzard made a post about that as well, when they were talking about trying to design raids without needing to have a bunch of add-ons and weak auras and DBM to see and to alert you on what's going on. I think that's a problem that PvP has, and I think it's a huge issue when it comes to players that are either returning or they're new to the game, or players that just don't want to have these add-ons. And at the end of the day, it's kind of something that it's become mandatory. There's really no arguing that it's mandatory. Even if you're someone that's casual, You know, you're a casual 2100 player, 2K rated player. You just play. You get 1800, you get elite sets. It is still mandatory, in my opinion, to have these add-ons, because if not, you are just at a severe disadvantage when it comes to the knowledge and awareness that you are capable of having in a game. You know, that was something that for a long time, and it still kind of is, but it's been slowly taken away from the game. Probably since end of BFA, I think, is when it got really bad, when people started using weak auras that have audio and visual cues. Similar to Gladiator Losa, you know, back in the day. God, I'm old. Back in the day, Gladiator Losa was the same thing. It would just alert you and say the spell name whenever people cast it. So if somebody was spamming sheep on you, you would just hear polymorph, combustion. So you would hear these cooldowns, you would hear these spells, and be able to react that way. Similar to a dog when you're training your dog. And this is kind of what PvP has become now when it comes to people having Omnibar to see enemy cooldowns, people having weak auras to hear when people are pressing cooldowns, to hear when people have, you know, debuffs up or other cooldowns, to see when people have totems being pressed. You have Omni CD now, which is an add-on that shows you your teammates' abilities. So now you can track all of your teammates' abilities. You can see all of their cooldowns. You can see all their utility spells. You can customize it that way. And I think what this does when it comes to new players, returning players, people that still play the game, is it really takes away from the skill of the game and awareness that some players have over others, as well as being this weird mandatory feature that people have to learn and have to understand how to set up in order to play the game. So it's not just about, oh, it makes the game easier to play, it gives people awareness. It's the fact that on top of doing those things and kind of lowering the skill of the game, if you will, you have players, whether they're new, they're returning, whatever, that don't have this knowledge, that are now they're now forced essentially to download these add-ons and play the game. Common thing that happens whenever we're streaming, people come in, they're asking about my add-ons, they're asking what setup we have, and you know, they'll see things like this, right? They'll see my weak auras. You can see, oh, my game froze. That's another fun part about having a bunch of weak auras. Freezes your game. They'll see weak auras like this. I've got 20 FPS now. Throughout the game, you'll see pop-ups like this that have the cooldown. They track the spells. They have big bright letters to alert you. They have sounds to alert you as well. You've got my Omnibar. I track healer dispel in the top right. I track CDs in the middle and kicks as well in the middle. So if I test all of them, this is what you see. So you can see healer dispel top right. And then all of these are just spells and interrupts that I can track throughout the game as well. This is another, you know, huge add-on that's been around for many years. What people used to do is, it's always funny to think of. What people used to do is used to have a couple things. Used to have interrupts and, oh, I'm going to track interrupts and I'm going to track blind. Or I'm going to track interrupts and I'm going to track smoke bomb. But now you just track everything. Track as much as you can. You want to track stuns. You want to track other CCs when it comes to, you know, blinds. You want to track trap. You want to track defensive cooldowns, offensive cooldowns, mobility spells. You want to track everything. And then a newer add-on that people, I want to say, started using, I think this was also a Shadowlands thing that people, when this started becoming a lot more popular, is Omni CD. So what Omni CD does, it tracks your teammates' cooldowns. So we're able to test this. So we can test, not in a game right now, but you can see on the top left that I'm tracking, you know, 9 different spells for myself. And you can do this for all your teammates. You get in a game and you can see, you know, if they have Trinket, you can see if they have Disperse, Swap, they have Spirit Link, they have, you know, you can track tons of things like utility as well. So if you go into the option panel, arena spells, same thing. You can track your Evoker's Deep Breath, their Eternity Surge. You can even track Eternity Surge, which I find hilarious. You can track actual cooldowns that are even part of a damage rotation. So I think a huge issue with these things is it just kind of forces these players to not just learn the game. It's not about learning the game anymore. It's not about logging on, playing the game, and having fun. It's not about having to figure out spells or, you know, read tooltips and all these things. It's basically about logging on, and you obviously have to kind of learn the game, and then you have to download 5 different add-ons, set up your UI, customize everything to where you can see it, make sure everything's in a good spot so you can tell who has cooldowns, who doesn't, who has kicks, who doesn't, who's on diminishing return, who's not. And all of these things, I think, create this very unwelcoming environment for players in WoW. You know, it's a huge thing that people talk about for years now is, oh, we need more new players. We need people to come back. We need people that have never played before. We need new. And I am a firm believer that add-ons and how crazy they've gotten are a huge, huge barrier to entry when it comes to World of Warcraft. I think, especially PvP, we've seen it in PvE, like I said. It's always funny when people come in and ask, you know, hey, I'm new. What do I need to play WoW? And it's like, well, get ready for this. I know you just downloaded the game. I know you just, you know, bought the game, got a sub, you downloaded it, took, you know, an hour, depending on your specs and everything. Hopefully it wouldn't take an hour. You download the game, 5 billion gigabytes, and you're so excited to play. And then I tell you that you have to download 7 different add-ons that you have to get. So you have to download a separate app. You have to download the CurseForge app, download that, and then you have to download 7 different add-ons and then customize it yourself. Best of luck. Hopefully you have a fun time playing. And I think this is a problem that a lot of people have, because you have people that think, oh, well, what if I just play without it? Well, you can't. Huge disadvantage playing without it, because you have other people that, even if they are, you know, let's say you're the same skill level, 1800, with their add-ons, they will be infinitely more aware than you, because they just have an easy time to see what's happening. They have alerts going off. They have visual and audio cues going off that tell them what to do. They hear a little horn. They know that they have to press the defensive because somebody pressed their Warbreaker, or they pressed their Colossus Smash. They hear a big fire breath or an explosion. They know somebody pressed combustion. They have to react to that. They hear, I think when people press totems with the weak auras, with the Mez weak aura pack, when people press totems, you hear kind of like a thud. You hear kind of a thud, and then the totem name pops up in the center. And all these things do is just make it harder for people that are new to the game, and it is a huge barrier to entry, while also affecting the ladder in more ways than just the top 0.1%. This affects anyone if they're 1500, 1800, 2K rated, 22, if they're glad, if they're rank 1. It affects everyone, because some people just have these add-ons, and whether they customize it better, or some people that don't know about it, and you're always going to be at a disadvantage if that's the case, where some people just have knowledge of this. A huge thing that's always fun to think about, a little story time here before we wrap this up. When weak auras first started becoming super crazy and popular in Shadowlands, what tournament teams would do, which I found hilarious, I think Sidu's team did this, I think there were a couple EU teams that did this, is they would hide weak auras. They would come up with weak auras, have people make them, have friends, PvEers, whatever, make weak auras, and they would hide them from the rest of the players, which was amazing to me, that you can have weak auras and add-ons in the game that realistically should just be features. You know, it's glorified cheating at this point, and a lot of them should just be kind of baseline features and part of the interface, and you have people hiding them from other players. It's crazy to me that it has gotten so ridiculous over the years. And I think that, you know, bringing up the tweet again, I think that this is another example of how big of an issue this is, and how detrimental it is to the success of the game, when even more weak auras are being established. Now we're going to be able to track, people are trying to come up with tracking your juke percentage. We're going to track your casting, or your interrupt percentage. This player always kicks at 90%, so I'm just going to always fake at 90. And at the end of the day, I will always kind of have this stance. I think there should be no issue when it comes to people that are playing the game. They shouldn't feel like they're at a disadvantage, or feel like they need to download 5 other programs just to play the game that they initially downloaded and paid for. I think it is a huge disadvantage to not be a part of that. It just makes the game less fun. It makes the game less fun when everything is so robotic. Everything is so revolved around people just being a dog, essentially. You're essentially a trained animal, and you hear a sound, you react. You see something on the screen, you react. And I shouldn't say you see something. You know, we're not talking about spell animations. You see something that says kill Siphene at the top of your screen, and you react to that. And this is something that I've been a huge advocate for. I've tried really hard to discuss it, and you know, the problems that it has being this crazy now over the years. And it really is, in my opinion, a huge reason as to why people aren't kind of playing the game, or, you know, they quit, or they try to play and they don't understand it and it's too much for them. It's very overwhelming. You know, you try to tell a new player to download 20 things and put up a bunch of stuff on your screen. It's an overwhelming process for a lot of players when it comes to WoW. And I don't like that it has gotten this way. I think the story that I told about, you know, add-ons and weak auras being hidden from other competitors and tournaments is a perfect example of how people can hide this information to their advantage. And I think that's something where, like we've said, where new players, they come in and everything's kind of hidden. People don't know what's going on. They're trying to learn the game. And all of these secret things are making it a worse experience for them. So, whew, it's always fun to talk. Just kind of wanted, you know, bring up the tweet, talk about the add-on issue that we have in WoW. And I really hope that at some point Blizzard does kind of change how they work or limit the strength of the add-ons and what they're capable of seeing in the game, what they're capable of programming. And I really think it would be a huge step forward for the game, where people can log on and play and not have to worry about setting up all these things on their UI, on their interface, setting up all these different add-ons and all these alerts, adjusting the sound to their alerts, just to be able to play PvP in their game or play PvE rating. Doesn't matter. The reason I think, on top of, you know, barrier to entry and all these things and lowering awareness, a huge reason for me feeling so strongly about this as well, which I mentioned earlier about the gameplay being too perfect and people just kind of not reacting to things instead of being proactive. It takes away from not only your awareness and the skill, but it takes away from something that I think is necessary when it comes to gaming, when it comes to sports. We need people to make mistakes again. This isn't something where, oh, you just want, you know, you want people to not play as well. Well, no, it's not that. People are still completely capable of playing well and being amazing and playing to 99.9% of their potential on the game. But when it comes to what these add-ons do and what the weak auras do as well, is it takes away those moments of, you know, of stress, of panic, of miscommunication, of, you know, misunderstanding what's happening, not knowing where people are standing, where people are positioned. Mistakes are part of the game. It's a part of the game. It's a part of life. It's a part of sports. That's something that has been taken away essentially because of these add-ons. You fight people that, you know, like I said earlier, with being a trained dog, you fight people that are robotic. They hear a sound, they react. They see something, they see a totem press. You know, I press my healing tide. Guess what? Immediately dead. Did they see me press it? No. They heard a sound, they saw on their screen healing tide totem, and then they turned their character 180, sniped it in half a second. And these are things that don't exist when add-ons aren't this crazy. People make mistakes, people aren't as aware, people, you know, have miscommunication, and that is a part of the game that is missing. And I think when it comes to playing the game, and, you know, for anyone who still watches AWC, still enjoys watching, you know, MDI and other WoW tournaments, whether you play or whether you don't play, this is something that is missing from the scene. And I think it's something that makes the game a lot less exciting as well. It makes the game a lot less exciting when you have people just have this essentially picture perfect response and reaction to the game, rather than being more proactive, rather than having to communicate what's happening. So not only from a player standpoint, whether you're casual, whether you're glad, whether you're rank 1, you know, a player standpoint and the gameplay that you are exhibiting, but from a spectator point of view, from someone who watches the tournaments, from someone who's played in the tournaments as well, I think this is something that is kind of missing from the scene for many years now, where you don't have people making mistakes anymore. Every now and then you'll have something where, you know, people, they get blown up, they don't react to the damage, it's too fast, whatever. That's something that kind of happens. But for the most part, when you watch these tournaments, that doesn't exist. You have every now and then somebody will, you know, somebody will die in the first 40 seconds. Happens every now and then. I think my team actually has the record nowadays. Shout out Ceralium for the fastest death in the AWC. Ceralium, you're the best. Love you, Mike. But these things don't happen anymore. So when people watch the game, right? People watch the game and they think to themselves, oh, it's so damp. The game is so damp now. Why are games so damp and so long? Add-ons are a huge part of that. If these don't exist, majority of the time in WoW nowadays, you don't have these games that go to 60, 70, 80% dampening where everyone is trading cooldowns and reacting to sounds and visual cues on their screen and never missing a beat until it's too late. Dampening's too high. They can't do anything anymore. Healing isn't enough. And the game inevitably ends. So when people ask themselves, oh, why is the game so damp? This is a huge reason as well. The game is damp because all the windows and the opportunity that you have to win, the chances that you can seek throughout a game, whether someone doesn't have a cooldown to press, whether someone, you know, is in a bad position, all of that and that the skill that is within that knowledge, all of that is kind of out the window because you can simply react to the Omnibar, to the Omni CD. You can count down spells like you see right here in the middle of my screen. I can count down how long until they have Death Mark. I can count down how long they have until they have leg sweep. So good example there with sweep is whenever you're fighting a monk and a monk has sweep, once you see that it has 6 seconds left, 7 seconds left, somewhere around there, majority of teams, what you do is you just scream that he has leg sweep. It's not about thinking when he has it. It's not about positioning and understanding and kind of tracking that or being more aware as to knowing when they're going to push in. It's about staring at your Omnibar and you see he has leg sweep up in 6 seconds and you tell your team to scatter. Everyone disperses. Go your own separate way. Don't stack for sweep. These are things that don't exist in the game anymore. We need to bring mistakes back. We need to bring back people playing the game and trying to be proactive instead of staring at all the buffs and debuffs and add-ons and weak auras on their screen. Instead of tracking how many your CCs, instead of tracking your cooldowns and your powerful buffs on your Omnibar, instead of tracking cooldowns and totem presses with audio and visual cues, we need it gone. We need it gone. We need to be able to have people make mistakes again. If you make a good play and catch someone off guard and they're in a bad spot, they should be punished for that. They shouldn't have their whole team be able to react within a quarter of a second because of their add-ons. Mistakes need to be a part of the game again. Communication and awareness need to be more important. And like we talked about, when it comes to people that are new to the game, you shouldn't have to tell people that are new or returning to download 6 different things to play the game. You already download the game. You should be able to play. So I know a lot of people, if you somehow got to this video, I know a lot of people are potentially going to come in and, you know, give their opinion as to why they disagree. You know, maybe they'll be a little hostile. You never know. Sometimes they are. But this really is an issue that I think is preventing a lot of people from playing the game. I know there's more than that. You know, there's a lot of things that come with it. You know, it's a very old game. It's an older MMO, 20 years in. A lot of spells, a lot of talents, a lot of animations. It's going to be an overwhelming process regardless. There's a lot of information in the game. I'm fully aware of that. I think add-ons make that a lot worse because we're adding another barrier and another stage of learning and development in the game as well. And I know there's going to be people that disagree. If you do disagree or you feel a certain way, maybe you don't want interrupt bar either. Maybe you don't want diminishing returns. Maybe you don't want weak auras, but you want the rest. Feel free to drop a comment. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. And yeah, if you made it this far, appreciate you all. Thanks for listening to my little TED Talk here. And I will continue to kind of give my thoughts on things and be the voice of reason, if you will, as to why we got to stop the add-ons, stop all this tracking nonsense in the game, and just let people log on and play. That's what we need to go back to. Appreciate you all. Deuces.